What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Carly. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me in today's video. I am a labor and postpartum doula, and I create content all about pregnancy and labor and motherhood and pretty much everything that falls in between. And if you didn't know, I am currently pregnant with our second baby, and in today's video I am going to be talking all about how we ended up getting pregnant the first time that we tried and the method that I followed in order to make that happen, and just generally how you can track your ovulation to hopefully increase your fertile window and optimize that period of time. I asked you guys over on my Instagram what you wanted me to talk about in the next video, and a ton of you requested to talk about ovulation and walk through my journal that I use to track everything and give you kind of like step-by-step guidance of how I track my ovulation. If you aren't following me over on Instagram yet, head over and follow me there. I'm always on stories chatting with you guys and asking you questions about the videos I should make, so if you have a specific request, you can always request it there. Before we jump into this video, I know that fertility and trying to conceive is a very personal experience, and it's very intimate and it's very different for every single person. We are very fortunate to be in the position that we were in, to have conceived the first month. I know that isn't always the case with everybody's story. I never want to diminish all the emotions that come with a fertility journey, especially if it's something that you've been on for a long time. And I am not a fertility specialist, I am a doula, and although I work hand in hand with some of my clients about conception and fertility, it is not my specialty. So everything that I'm showing you today is just what worked for me and for my family and for our conception journey. By the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly what I did step by step to ensure that I optimized my fertile window and all the tools that I utilized. I did make an entire video about how to chart your cycle. It's in my fertility series. I will link it above for you if you want a very in-depth walkthrough of how you can chart your cycle. So if you wanna check that video, I will link it here for you. But this is just gonna be a walkthrough of my personal journal and what I did to optimize my fertile window. Before we jump into it, if you are not yet already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you as a part of this empowering community, and definitely give this video a big thumbs up if you are enjoying it so far. It always helps me to know if you guys are enjoying this type of content, so definitely give it a thumbs up. Things you should know is that, one, I am not on hormonal birth control, and I have never been on hormonal birth control. I didn't have to come off birth control in order to start conceiving. The second thing you should know is that I have been using my Daisy fertility tracker to track my ovulation and my cycles and charting everything for the last like 3 to 4 years or so. So I had a lot of data to go on. If you do not have a basal thermometer just yet, like I said, go watch the other video that I made to understand why you might need one, but I highly recommend getting your hands on one if you are looking to optimize your fertile window. We use this as our form of birth control for natural family planning, and it's very handy. And I'll show you guys on screen in a second the app that comes with this specific thermometer and how it shows when you're ovulating. So I'll get into that more. I used PregMate Ovulation and Pregnancy Test Kit. This is a really nice kit to get. I will link it down below. It'll be in my Amazon store if you guys want to check it out. This is super nice because it comes with a ton of the ovulation tests as well as a ton of pregnancy tests. So you have both that you need. And I actually did a video where I went through and tested all the pregnancy tests that I could get my hands on and see which one was the most sensitive. And these strip tests were pretty sensitive. I would probably go back and get the Easy at Home test kit, but this one did work fine for me. I did notice whenever I was doing the pregnancy test strips though, that the Easy at Home ones were definitely darker. So something to consider if you are looking to make the same journal setup that I'm about to show you. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my ovulation journal and how I tracked everything to ensure that we optimized our fertile window and conceive the first time. Okay, so this is my ovulation journal. If you have seen my pregnancy test line progression or how to chart your cycle video or any of those videos, you have seen this journal before. And this is the spread that I used the month that we conceived baby number 2. If you haven't ever seen an ovulation journal, this is simply where I keep track of all of my ovulation tests and all of my pregnancy tests and keep track of the days of my cycle. So I'm going to zoom you guys in and we will start at the top. So up here you will see the date. This is literally just the day of the month. So I started the first day of my cycle on January 17th. And if you go to this column, you'll see this is the cycle date. So the first day of your cycle is the first day of your period. As you will see here, the little circle is an indicator of the days that I had my period. For me, it is very normal to have about 4 to 5 days days for my period to last. So that is the first day of your cycle is when you start your period. And then over here, this is the column where I track days past ovulation. We don't have anything here because I wasn't ovulating until here. So what I'm going to do is just use this piece of paper to kind of walk you through day by day what it looked like. So January 17th, cycle day 1, first day of my period. And then the second day period, third day period, 4-day period. And then after 5 days is when my period stopped. So at this point, this would be an appropriate time to start taking ovulation tests. I mentioned this kit earlier in the video, but this would be a totally appropriate time for you to start taking your ovulation tests. Now, when it comes to ovulation tests, it's a little bit different than a pregnancy test is, right? When you're looking at a pregnancy test, you are looking for the presence or the absence of a line next to the control line. With an ovulation test, you will always see 2 lines. We're looking for the test line to be as dark or darker than the control line. I'm actually going to zoom you guys in a little bit more so that you can see a little clearer. Okay, hopefully you can see that a little bit better. The tape is creating a little bit of a glare, so I wanted to move it in more. Hopefully you can see that better. But like I said, you can start taking your ovulation test as soon as the day after your period ends. Everyone's cycle is going to be different, but generally speaking, you tend to ovulate around like the 12th day of your cycle. So for me, I just waited until I was at the 11th day of my cycle to start testing ovulation. So this was the 11th day of my cycle. This would have been the 27th, and I used first morning pee. So some people swear by first morning, some people swear by evening. I just ended up testing both because it was the easiest thing for me. I didn't do PM on the 27th, which was the 11th day of my cycle. I did not do PM. I only did AM. I don't know why. And then on the 28th, I did test in the morning, and this would have been the 12th day of my cycle. And I did that in the morning and then in the evening. So as you can see, there is a significant difference in the darkness of the test line on the 12th day of my cycle in the evening time. And I just want to point it out really quickly. So this is the test line. This is the control line. That would be the test line, control line, and then this is the test line, and that's the control line. So as you can see, the test line is much, much darker than the other 2 days, and it's as dark or darker than the control line. Now, some people get confused about a test like this because this does not mean that I was ovulating on the 12th in the evening time. This is a ovulation prediction test. So this is an indicator that my body is going to be ovulating in the near future. And generally speaking, the range is within the next 24 hours to 48 hours, 36 hours. Everyone's body is different. But generally, this is when the hormone LH, which is luteinizing hormone, and when that spikes, that's what gives you that indicator. And your LH spikes right before you're about to ovulate. So as you'll see, I kept taking ovulation tests just to kind of see and compare those lines. On the 29th, the 13th day of my cycle in the morning, you can see it's a little bit lighter, and they're still pretty consistent in darkness, but it's a little bit lighter than this test was. And as I continue on, that's the PM one on the 13th day, and then the morning on the 14th day, the evening on the 14th day of my cycle, and then the morning on the 15th day of my cycle. And that's when I stopped taking ovulation tests. So then if you'll remember over here, this is the column that I had marked for days past ovulation. And because I assumed that I had this happen on the night of my 12th day of my cycle, this was an indicator to me that I was going to ovulate on the 13th, which would then put the first day past ovulation as the 14th day of my cycle. Now, if I was just using ovulation strips, that would be my guess as well. But because I was using my Daisy fertility tracker, I also had those notes to kind of cross compare. And as you can see in the app, on January 27th, that's when I started taking my ovulation predictor kit tests. On the 27th, it was indicating that I could be fertile or that I was in my fertile window. The 28th, it said that I could be fertile, but it didn't indicate that I was ovulating. And then on the 29th, there is a note that says ovulation, and this was cycle day 13, which is when the ovulation predictor kit strip indicated that I would be ovulating as well. So those 2 days line up really nicely. And then on the 30th, it says that I would be fertile as well. The 31st would be fertile, the 1st would be fertile, and then starting on the 2nd is when it's kind of fluctuating depending on your body. It's different for everybody. And so the 1st and the 31st and the 30th were the best days for us to try to conceive, and same with the 29th. And the app is really helpful too, because you can make notes like here in cervical fluid. You can make notes about what you're experiencing, different notes about what you had during the day, if you had your period, if you had sexual intercourse, anything like that. So while I was journaling everything with my actual ovulation test kits, I was cross-referencing everything with my Daisy Fertility app and taking my basal temperature every single morning to know exactly when I was going to ovulate. So then back to my journal, this was nice because then I started being able to track days past ovulation. So the first day past ovulation was the 14th day of my cycle and the 30th of January. And then we moved into February. And if you've seen my pregnancy test line progression video, then you will have already seen this. But if not, I'll walk you through really quickly. So generally speaking, you can start taking pregnancy test 10 days past ovulation for a more accurate reading, or 6 days before your missed period. If you're anything like me, you might have a shorter cycle. I have a 25-day cycle, so those days overlap. As the days kind of passed, I waited all the way until 6 days before my missed period, because I was expecting to get my period here on the 11th. So technically it was 8 days past ovulation, but 6 days before my missed period. And that test came out totally negative. I took one in the morning, and I ended up taking a first response test as well. And then we moved down to 9 days past ovulation and 5 days before my missed period, and I still did not get a positive pregnancy test. And then 10 days past ovulation and 4 days before my missed period is when I got my first positive pregnancy test. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it on camera or not. It is quite a faint line. And then from there, I was still tracking everything, but from there, all of the pregnancy test lines just got darker and darker. And like I said, I did a whole video kind of walking through each day of the pregnancy test. So if you want to see that, I will link it for you too. So that is how I tracked everything during the month that we ended up conceiving our second baby. I used a combination of tracking my OPKs and seeing exactly when I was going to ovulate, as well as using my basal temperature to really put like a very small window on the days that made the most sense to optimize my fertile window. And I really liked the system just because it gave me something like tactile to focus on and work through, and just kind of keep notes and track of everything. And I thought that it was really, really helpful. I hope that you guys found this video helpful and that you got a better understanding of how you can track your ovulation and some tips and tricks for whenever you are trying to optimize your fertile window yourself. If you aren't yet already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Like I said earlier, I would love to have you as a part of this empowering community, and give this video a big thumbs up so that other people who are looking for this type of content can find my channel. And I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye.